Hey everyone, welcome to today's event. My name is Steve Oat. I am a senior product engineer here at Kanji. Prior to Kanji, I was at Apple for about 15 years in various roles in retail, professional services, and the enterprise space. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of using device management and other technologies to really create amazing user experiences. And with me, I have two panelists. I have Michael Tsai, Senior Product Manager here at Kanji, focused on end user experience. Prior to Kanji, Michael held multiple product roles, building both hardware and software products across various industries. And he is passionate about connecting ideas and people to create delightful user experiences. Charlie Clausen is the IT manager at Forward Financing, and he has a true focus on empowering end users and curating amazing onboarding experiences. Before joining Forward Financing, Charlie spent time in healthcare, IT, higher education, and tech. So just to kind of get started here, it seems like in all the conversations, even our previous panel events I've been a part of, we always come back to this phrase, user experience. And I just want to take a moment to define what we mean by that in the context of device management. So Charlie, I'm going to start with you. As an IT admin, how would you define user experience?
Sure. And you just said it. I'm an IT and I'm not a UX designer, so it's going to be a little different for me. But usability and does it bring a smile to the end user's face? Like everything that's thought behind that should that's where it should be driven. And if the end user is enjoying what they're doing right out of the gate, and they're smiling and we're getting good feedback from that, that's really where it needs to be for me.
Awesome. Awesome. And Michael, why do you think that's so important? Why is it so important to put that smile on the user's face? And why should IT care?
Yeah, I think, from a product person perspective, when you see a really well-designed, well-crafted product with really great experience, that's when people are happy, they like to use the product, they come back, the engagement is up, you get more adoption. And if you think of, that same framework in terms of, a working environment, the happier, right, the more productive, the more enjoyable the tool they use, the more productive they become. That's like a net positive to the overall company. And it also builds that trust, that relationship between the IT team as well as the end users.
Couldn't agree more. Now, user experience, being a product manager, I think it really starts, like you said, with that product or the product development. What are some of the things that product managers and engineers think about when designing products that are user-centric?
Yeah, I think, it's really important to think about, I think, what exactly is the user doing, right? Like, what is the job to be done there by that person who's using the tool, and really be in their shoes to think about, okay, what are the steps they have to go through, and really collaborating with, design as well, and understanding user through user research and such. But is that kind of empathy of like, hey, put yourself in their shoes of what exactly are the steps they're going through. And through that experience, you can then see and experience maybe the same, right, pitfall in certain area and improve from those.
Awesome. And what do you think IT admins can learn from that?
Yeah, I think that is like, to Charlie's point, right? That's not the maybe your main role or profession or kind of like where your focus has been. But I think, being able to think at that level helps, right? Crafting or creating that, like I said earlier, the tool and providing that tool and that experience that they have. And, it's that overall net positive impact, right? You can have on the overall company, being the empower, being that kind of superhero to be able to help folks get what they need. Like we all been there. We all, right, are working somewhere, been in the, workforce for quite some time. We all know, if you have a tool you love, it makes you more productive. It's like an extension of yourself, as one of my colleagues actually shared with me yesterday, right? It becomes part of you, and it's not a hindrance to like what you need to do day to day. So it adds value, it multiplies your output. And from an IT team perspective, right, it's the same. You're providing the tool that people need. And I know there's also a lot of conversation around well, there's that productivity angle, but also there's that security angle. I think, there's a whole other webinar we can probably do to talk about the whole how do you, help and protect, right, the end user. But at the core, you're there to give them the tool they need. And I think from IT team perspective, right, that's your impact to the company as well, is how do you help, maintain and improve and increase that overall productivity and satisfaction and enjoyment and working at the company.
Awesome. And Charlie, being the IT person here, what role do you think IT plays in that user experience?
Honestly, a great deal, and it's changed over time. As we mentioned, security is paramount, but the now with people onboarding remotely, it used to be day one you meet the IT staff and you get set up if you're lucky day one, right? But now it's people and culture, and then IT. We need to get them set up on their machines prior to day one. They have meetings, shortly after onboarding in the morning. They need to get into their computer, into their email, look at their calendars, make sure things are set up appropriately before day one. So making sure that user experience, when they open up that laptop and they're happy about what they're looking at, things are in the right spot, and there's consistency across the board. So that your new hire class of 5 is all experiencing the same thing. That's huge. And so like I said, it's changed over time, and we play a big factor in it now.
Yeah, so it's really almost like they need to hit the ground running. So they're not that whole day of just getting connected. It sounds like.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think speaking of how it's changed over time, I think there's been some fear in many IT departments that users just can't do it. They can't do it by themselves. And so there was always this mindset of this white glove service from IT, which meant IT did everything for the user. Really, including creating those user accounts, and like I shudder to even say this, but also even setting their passwords. Do you think that mindset still exists, or has that changed?
I think with tools like Kanji and other SaaS platforms, it has changed. I still like to think that the white glove, I want to keep that for our end users to know that we're here, and if they need that help, we're here for them, and we're not Nick Burns, the IT guy from SNO, if any, but having a tool like Kanji where their machine is sent to them, everything is ready to go. I'll give you a use case. I had an end user that needed to upgrade to the latest Mac OS, and he put in a ticket, and I said, instead of hopping on a Zoom, which is what he wanted to do, I said, go up to self-service in Kanji, install Monterey, and later on that night, I went into the portal, and he was updated to 12.1. So, we're already empowering these end users to do these things, and they start to feel more confident too. But then they still know IT is there. So I think white glove has changed a little bit in, when they open up that laptop, things are where they need to be. They have access to the things that they need. So I think it's starting to morph, but in a more hands-off way.
Yeah, and I'm just curious with that user, so he did the update himself. Was there calls into the help desk? How do you think that experience was for him?
I did not hear back from him, so I know it went well. End users are not bashful about reaching out. I think we all know that. But when there's a ticket came in, we gave a response, and then that end user was just on its way. Now it's saving time on his end. It's saving time on our end. Time is money. It's awesome.
Now, I think that is a perfect transition. I'm going to hand it back to you, Michael. How do you think providing that better user experience benefits IT, right? We know it benefits the user, but how does it benefit IT or maybe even the whole company?
Well, given that example, right? If you heard what Charlie said at the end is you didn't hear back, right? It's kind of like you provide them the tool, they're able to do, those requests or self-service themselves. It frees up IT team to then be able to do other, right, more important, IT help desk is one of those top, always kind of the top request or work IT team needs to focus a lot of time. And sometimes they're repetitive, right? And repetitive tasks just takes away your productivity, takes away your time to be able to maybe focus on, upgrading to the next Mac OS. There are, things that you have to go through to validate. So from an IT team perspective, given the end user that tool with an experience that they enjoy to want to keep using it, it frees them up. It frees IT team up to do other important stuff as well that they may not have time to if they're just bogged down by help desk tickets.
Yeah. So more instead of being retroactive, kind of moving to a proactive mindset of I'm going to give the right tools and then I'm going to move on to some other stuff.
Totally. And to kind of your question earlier about that trend, right? Like I think, you know, in the higher upmarket enterprise space, like it's slower, I would say, than the smaller segment, customer segment. It's starting to see that transition, but it's hard, right, to move when you're a 500 or 1,000 plus employee, right, to make that shift to start doing something at that scale. It's not easy, but I think we are seeing, people realizing, especially with, COVID, the change, right? You don't, to Charlie's point, in the past, if you're in the office, you have a person or someone you can go to, and that really helps solve things. But if you're remote, first, you don't have that environment to make you feel like you have the support, and then the frustration could be added on when you're just trying to reach people and couldn't. And so, like, I think those are all kind of things that making it easy for end user to do, right, maintenance or upgrade or any kind of like task that IT team can offload to be self-service, give them that power. At the same time, it give IT team that valuable time back to focus on a lot of valuable things.
So it basically gives IT teams those cycles back and that time, and it benefits the user because it's giving them the right tools to make their IT experience or their technology experience easier.
Totally. And today, we're seeing, I was reading a outcome report from Creative Strategy recently, and they talked about that, right? Like, I'm going to quote them actually. I think this is really interesting. They say, many IT decision makers will be the first to tell you that their purpose is not about harnessing the love of employee they serve. Yet that is, not a question that providing employee with the best tools to do their job highly correlate with a positive sentiment toward IT, right? So like, that is being seen more, I think, in this time now when there's more need to support folks remotely, that they need to start thinking about, okay, how do we make that experience better for folks to help and benefit both sides.
Love it. And Michael, what do you think, being a product manager, what are some of the tools or technologies that help admins and IT staff create those kind of experiences we've been talking about, right? What are the things that they're asking for? What are the things that they use every day?
Yeah, I think from a tool perspective, from a product, if I'm thinking as a product person, when I'm thinking user experience, right? It's really that understanding. How do you understand someone? Well, there's ways like using some sort of qualitative way, like you look at how they're using the tool, or you talk to them and get their sentiment around the experience of using the tools. I think, that is actually something that is easily, it can be leveraged across different department, right? As an IT team, as an org, I would say you're at the heart. You're the heart of the company because, you keep things running, and that collaboration with other department to understand maybe their users' need, right? Every department might have slightly different needs now, maybe just application level, maybe not at the device level, but still having that understanding and being able to reach out and having those feedback. Now, you may not have time to do those kind of things because you're bogged down by help desk tickets and all, but I think that is one of the tools, and there are lots of tools out there, like, Charlie brought up Zoom. It could be a type form survey of sort, like just reaching out and connecting, having that dialogue conversation often help. The pull, right? I've seen, folks using Slack, right? Hey, we're about to launch this certain app. Like, who would love to, or who would need this? Like, tell us more. Like that kind of, you know, that kind of tactic, exercise really help you gain that understanding. And I think that is important. It's just that dialogue and that conversation.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You had mentioned something I hadn't really thought about. I'm always thinking from a tooling perspective. I'm always thinking, how do I get that computer set up, right, for that user? But you also mentioned like communications tools, right? Like how does the user, how are they communicated to, and how do they communicate with IT or other people in the company? And so that's a really good point. What about those tools that they use on their computer for getting set up? Like what are some of those technologies that IT admins could use as building blocks? Just to get geeky for a second here.
Yeah, I think if we talking about kind of what Mac Dynamics can do, right? From a self-service perspective, right, you can provide. I'll use our own product for example, but it's that self-service portal with custom script, right, or a custom function that you can create so that they can like do things like um, you know clean up the cache, do some self-service maintenance of the device, right? If someone's device is running hot, like if they have a way to understand what it is, or even some sort of cell diagnostic, it's kind of given them the tool to understand how to use their tool, and at the same time with the application that you can provision. Those are kind of like Charlie was saying, you can help them learn how to use. I think there's that notion that they just don't know how to use their device. I think we're not giving them enough credit. Like I think there's always the opportunity to learn about the piece of hard machinery that's in front of you, and Mac in general, right, has a really, it's built into the DNA, that usability. And so I think leveraging those kind of same framework and kind of same mindset is like, I can provide snippets about how to use something, help they learn, right? Like that's part of that communication, part of that education. And the more you empower them, the more they become self-sufficient, right? Then again, it goes back to that productivity, that, taking some of that time back for the IT team to be able to do other tasks.
Awesome. And you mentioned just the inherent usability of Apple products. What about other Apple technologies that might help the setup experience? I'm thinking like automated device enrollment and things like that. Can you kind of dig into those a little bit of how those play a part?
Yeah, totally. I think, from this, zero touch kind of deployment perspective, we're hearing more, right? And especially in a remote environment, that is very key. To Charlie's point earlier, you have to be able to just open the box and start using the device. And automatic device enrollment takes care of a lot of that. And at Kanji, we also add on a bit more with, liftoff to give the end user that context. But as an IT admin, you can create and craft, right, some of that experience to get that onboarding flow really smooth and help them understand right away what is it that they can do and can't do, right? What they should be aware of, how they can leverage the device. I think that is a really key. I think it really helped the whole zero touch with ADE. I think that is, yeah, definitely key for leveraging.
And Charlie, you were recently featured in a customer story about creating amazing experiences for your users. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and what you created there? Sure,
absolutely. Along my career, you see a bunch of different things, and you realize, all right, this portion of the job can be done better. Onboarding at various places was hit or miss sometimes, and so when coming on to Forward, there were things we could improve upon, and talking to the end users to me is where I'm going to get that feedback right away. Like what's important to you guys? What's going to make this better? And quickly, by leveraging Kanji, we were able to make that experience one that's special, and quickly too. So.
And what is it? Like what experience have you created? Like what is the typical, like I've started today, at your company and I'm opening up my Mac. What am I expecting to see?
Typically we get that machine out to our end user, and then we reach out on top of that saying your machine's on the way and we'd love to hook up with a Zoom before onboarding. So we try to make sure, and 99 times out of 100, they're fine with everything that we have going on because we've given them the appropriate tools, we've given them documentation, and they're happy about that FaceTime. They love that. They're not just, it's not a team behind a curtain and they don't know, I make it a point to introduce myself. My desktop support specialist does. And I think that goes a long way. They immediately feel more comfortable about the tool that they're using, their MacBook. And day one, when they go into onboarding with people and culture, they're all ready to go, and that is important to that team as well as the company. They can start working right out of the gate, and that's important for them. It's important for the company, and it creates such a good experience for them. Going, you know what, this company cares about me, and we do, and I think that's what it's all about.
You mentioned several teams there. When you kind of put this experience together, who is all involved?
Sure. Like I said, I mentioned the end users. I reach out to my stakeholders and through various departments and end users, and then people in culture as well. when COVID hit, it's been 2 years now, which is wild, but you realize how closely aligned people and culture talent departments are with IT, and how many touch points they have with these new hires and onboardings. And so being closely aligned with them and what we were trying to do to jive in the same path is super important, just to make sure we're doing the right by them and vice versa.
And you talked a lot about kind of onboarding. What about like the ongoing? Like, what's the experience like after those first few days?
It has to be a good one, because they don't. There aren't many things coming in about wrong that are wrong with the machine. But no, the experience is good. We are continually trying to get better. So we proactively reach out to our end users and say, what can we do to make this process better? I try to reach out to one person about a month later after the onboarding class to say, okay, hopefully it was good, but what was missing? And we try to stay engaged with our end users. I mentioned it before, but it's super important to know that they know that we're here and we're there to support them.
Awesome. And just to get kind of geeky again for a second, so they have kind of the apps they need to do their job, and you maybe push down some configuration profiles and stuff to set some things up, maybe some parameters, different things like that. What are they using self-service a lot? Are they calling into IT? Like, what is kind of that ongoing interaction with IT?
Every company is going to have some traction with them reaching out to the IT department, but I'm trying to look at the things that are coming in and be proactive about putting things in self-service so they're more apt to go there. For instance, I brought up the Mac OS update, but we have some hot desks throughout the office, and we leverage one of the unifying tools for USB. So I'm like, okay, let me put Logitech Unify on there. That way, if they have that little USB dongle so they can use a mouse and keyboard, they can run that app right from self-service, install it in 2 seconds. And then be hooked up to a mouse and key, like little things like that you see coming in, and you go, okay, we can fix that. We're trying to, like I mentioned, we're trying to empower the end user and know that we're thinking about their best interests at all times.
So are you kind of getting them into that habit of like going to self-service, like kind of changing that? Like, it used to be like, hey, I need a quick call IT, there's a problem. Like, do you see the user's mindset changing?
Yes, I routinely. So I make it a point to reach out to the entire company, probably bi-monthly, with like an email with like, here's some new stuff to think about, and I will probably about half the time I've mentioned Kanji self-service and things that we've added, and look here first for things. But yeah, people have gone to it and then reported back like this has been great. They haven't had to waste time out of their day, reaching out, trying to explain we've given them this option, and it takes time. It's a cultural thing, right? Like let me just call IT and they can fix it. But we're moving people in that direction, which is really neat.
That's cool. So you're not only providing the tools, but you mentioned something else, which is you're also communicating as well with your users, of like letting them know what's out there, letting them know, like encouraging them to go to self-service to go get the thing. So that's a really, really, I think, great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's important. I mean, people forget that why we do this job, and if the end users weren't there, neither would we, right? So like they are number one important, and communicating with them and making sure they know where the things are is very important.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm just curious. Like, you've kind of set up this experience. I'm assuming I'm just going to kind of make some assumptions here that they get their Mac, they open it up. They might go through setup and maybe see some apps being installed, and they end up at their desktop. Is that correct?
Yeah. In those cases, we could ship a machine right now to an end user with what's the backup right now with ordering machines. We kind of have things in house because we're afraid. Some things come in 2 weeks, some things are 3 months. So trying to ship something directly to an end user that needs to be onboarded in 5 days is kind of tricky. But right now they're opening up their machine, they're putting in their temporary password, and then all the things are there. And it takes us probably 15, 20 minutes to get that machine in that state, which is it saved us so much time over our prior method.
And when you kind of designed this experience, how long did that take you? You had, multiple teams involved that, were stakeholders. Like, was this like, hey, I rolled it out in a year, a few months, days? Kind of what did that look like?
I was blown away with, so I hopped on a demo with Kanji, and absolutely blown away that, they gave me the trial, and within about 45 minutes, I had our machines about 85% of the way zero touch. And if that's not going to sell you on the amount of time and money that can save an IT department, I don't know what is, but it was tremendous.
Awesome. And how do you think, like, you're like kind of looking at what you've created, how does that scale now? Like, as you're adding new employees, is this going to be something you're going to need to be continually, changing, or like what does that look like for you?
I mean, we're not changing from Kanji, that's for sure. This is
good to hear.
This is we could onboard 10 people tomorrow if we have the machines in the closet, and I know that can get done in about 2 hours by turning on machines and entering usernames. The ability to say that to your brass, your VPs, and go, you know what, we can stand up a whole department for you tomorrow if we need to. That stuff is gold. We may start expanding our blueprints and what we do with different apps for different departments as we get bigger as an organization. But no, Kanji, it's amazing. It's allowed us to. Scaling is not a concern of mine, which is awesome.
Awesome. And just to start to kind of close things out here, now that you've created this experience, like, are you done? Like, you just like hanging back, eating some popcorn, or like, what's next? What are you doing?
That is the $1 billion question, isn't it? I think if you think you're done in this field, then you need to find a new one. There's always room to improve. So figuring out what we can do to, it sounds cliche, but be more proactive, figure out why things are happening before they're happening, continue to engage with our end user base to make sure that we're doing right by them. And, if there is something that we can push down from Kanji or make available, let's do that. Just continue to listen to the people that are using the products that we give them, and try to do our best to make things better every day.
Awesome. And Michael, I'd love to kind of hear some closing words of wisdom for you. I think that, IT traditionally, like old school IT, had been seen as like the no people, right? Like, hey, can I have this thing? No, because it doesn't fit into this perfect shape that we've created. But, what advice could you give admins out there? Like, how do they become the yes people instead of the no people?
Well, first off, if you're not comfortable saying yes right away, you can start practicing by saying yes, but, that kind of helps soften that transition a bit, maybe. But actually, Charlie, that last part that he was talking about, I think that is the one key advice I think I will share is it really is understanding, reaching out and understanding how they're feeling about the tool, right? Are there things that can be improved upon more proactive, like I said earlier, rather than waiting for them to come to you with the problem, which is fine. You can resolve, you can work on it, but there are opportunity, and to Charlie's point, being able to scale quickly, having those kind of automation piece in place, then frees up that time for you, right, to do some of those exercises of like, how do I grow and how do I empower folks? How do I, enhance this IT department to do more and to add more value to the company? So I think it's that listening, and that goes tied back to being a product, manager, is you do want to understand how your user is doing, right? You understand how they feel about the tool, what they could, what they would like to see improved upon, what are some existing things that are working great. Like all those kind of telemetry helps me understand where to take that product to next. I think, to Charlie's point, one of the things we've been talking about internally when we did a whole kind of self-service user research activity with my design counterpart, and there's that notion of like, can we help people create that sentiment about Kanji as an end user? It's like, that's where I go to find information. And IT team, right? That is where I will give you and empower you with knowledge, and that's that connecting point. So, it's like your Siri on your Mac. Can you just like ask, right? Like, well, there's your self-service. It's like that conduit to give you the tools you need, to give you the knowledge you need. And I think there's a lot more we'll see from that kind of experience perspective, and the more time, right, they can free up to do those things, it just enhances the overall company performance-wise, relationship, culture, like Charlie said, especially being remote. Like it's a total net positive. So yeah, number one suggestion, yeah, listen to the user, try when you have time, understand how they're doing, how they're feeling, and go from there and collaborate with the rest of the company as well.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I hope you have found this event to be enlightening and you gained some valuable insight. Michael, Charlie, I just want to thank you both for being our panelists today. I really enjoyed talking with you. If you haven't seen it, you can find Charlie's customer story at blog.kanji.io. And if you are interested in finding out how Kanji can help you build great user experiences in your organization, go to kanji.io/start. Ask our team to show you the tools we have that have helped hundreds of Kanji customers create those amazing experiences on their own. Thank you, and we will see you next time.